job mobility, such as like young people are more likely to move, those who have short tenure are more likely to move, like those in metropolitan areas are more likely to change jobs, those kind of things, okay? So I will briefly talk about the theory regarding why the job turnovers happen, okay? Actually, the idea is pretty simple. We are talking in the theory that we talks about the quality of job match. Okay, what does it mean? Okay, so job match is like it's like a marriage. Okay, so you know when two people, the two partners meet, okay, they can know each other a lot about it. Okay, so how they look like, what they like, you know, all those kind of things. Okay, but it is quite likely that unless you get married and live together, you know, there are some things that you never know, right? For example, like you know, how tidy this person is, whatever, how they use the bathroom. That's very important. Okay, so those kind of things. Okay. While you are dating, probably they try to present the best, you know, feature to you. But when they are married, it's quite difficult to keep up with that, you know. Some people do it for a whole lifetime. That's great. But jobs are like that, you know. So let's think about it. You know, what is job? You know, if you get a job, basically you are matched with a specific work environment, workplace, and your coworkers, and you know the tasks, right? So jobs involve lots of things. Not only you just get paid, right? You go to that place, and then you meet the people, you meet your coworkers, and you meet your boss, you know, and then you do certain things that you may like or you may not like. Okay, all those things. So the thing is that. So that obviously that when you try to find a job or the employer tries to hire somebody, they will do, you know, their best to find out each other. Okay? Without knowing about each other, it's very risky to hire somebody or to take the job without knowing what you're going to do, right? So obviously you will spend lots of time in studying what kind of jobs you are going to do, and the employer will also spend lots of effort and time to find about you, but there are limitations, basically. You know? And because obviously that, you know, for example, like think of this, like workers differ in their abilities, okay, and so there's a difference. There are some differences. It's very difficult to tell, okay, unless you work together. Okay. And the firms differ in their working environment, working conditions. You probably know what kind of jobs you're going to do, but you probably don't know what kind of boss you are going to deal with. You know? It's probably very, you know, it's very nice, it may be. Or he may be control freak. Or he may call you anytime he wants. Okay? It is quite possible. Okay? Or your coworkers may be very friendly and very helpful. Or they may be very hostile to you for whatever reason, okay? Or you probably don't like, you know, those group of people. You may love them, okay? Unless you actually get into the environment, do things, there are things that you never know, okay? Those hidden aspects of the jobs. Also, the employer is the same thing. You know, employer hire you thinking that, you know, certain, you know, qualifications of yours, but once you get into the job, it is quite possible that, for example, some jobs require you to work, you know, with many different groups of people. Okay, that requires you very important, like interpersonal skills, right? You should be, you know, able to you should be able to interact with the strangers quite easily. If you are very shy, it can be a problem. Not only to you, it could be a problem to you, to your employer. So they don't know, okay? Or you may work under a lot of stress. Probably there is a tight deadline, okay? Unless you are actually face the deadline, Okay, the employer cannot find out whether you can perform well under those stressful, tight deadline situations. Those kind of things that, obviously, even though, I don't list everything, obviously, there are things that you never know unless you actually do the thing. Okay? So that's the, how the job turnovers occur. How? You get into the job, okay, and you thought that you're going to like it, but once you got there, you do the things, then later you realize that this is not the thing that I want. Okay, it is quite possible. Okay, you probably were mistaken, or you probably find out that, these coworkers, I don't like them. I don't want to work with them. Okay, it is quite possible. Or, there are things that you may not like. Or there are things that, employers may not like about you. Also, both cases are possible. So the same worker, this worker, for example, may perform differently under different conditions. So you may do a lousy job in this condition, or let's say very stressful condition, but you probably do very well in a less stressful environment. Let's say, they give you, lots of time in doing those kind of things. And you may perform a lot better than, than let's say under tight conditions. Or there may be people that, totally reverse. Some people do their job pretty well under tight deadline. Some people cannot, for example, I know some people, they cannot do anything without deadline. There is no deadline, these people just don't work. Okay? So those kind of things are possible. I'm pretty sure that some of you are like that. Okay? So those people will perform a lot better in much more structured environment. Some people will perform better in unstructured environment. So that's different. Okay. And also that the workers obviously don't know everything about the job, so it may not be a good fit. Once you may find out it's not a good fit. So these things, it means we can say that each job match. Okay. So there is one worker. Let's say there are worker A and worker B. Let's say there are 3 firms. Let's say X, Y, Z, for example. Then you can think of a job match between A and X, A and Y, A and G, right? Even though the person, identical person, let's say even though the firm does pretty much the same thing, it is possible that you probably, this A person perform best under X, for example, Y is just okay, and Z probably, it could be possible it's very poor, okay? So it is possible. So we call it that each as job match, okay? And we can say this is kind of quality of job match, okay, or value of the job match, okay? So for A, the matching with X has the best value. It has the best quality. This is poorest quality. And for B, it's possible that the B maybe perform poorly, very poorly with X, okay, best with Y, and okay with G, right? It is possible, right? Okay. So we are thinking about that kind of situation. Okay. So obviously that at the end, what's going to happen? Job turnovers will happen. Okay. For example, let's say company X hired B first. Okay. Thinking that B would be a good fit, but later they find out that B doesn't perform very well under its own environment. So the performance is very, very poor. So what should X do? Okay, what can X try is that, tell this person to go somewhere else. Okay, you are not up to our expectation. Okay, and it does not necessarily mean that B is just a very poor worker. It's just the B this match is pretty bad. So B, let's say, finds out that he goes to firm Y and he performs much better. So he can move from, for example, X to Y. So X just lays him off. Okay? Or it is possible just B finds out that he doesn't like this, so he may quit. Okay? and find another firm, and then he may, you know, just move around. And at the end, it is possible that he will finally go to firm Y and be happy and work there and perform the best. For A, basically, you can think of the same scenario. If A has got the job at firm Z, then they're very unhappy. So, you know, maybe layoff or quit happens. Okay? So that's the thing. So that's how the job turnovers are likely to happen. If you know all these quality of match in advance before you get a job, then obviously there is no reason why the job turnover should happen. Because if A knew that, you know, the best fit is X, A would go X, okay, and then stay there, no change. B would go Y and then stay there, no change. Okay? So change do happen. It should mean that there is a, you know, unknown aspects of this match quality. So, is the job turnover a bad thing? You know, actually, if you think about it this way, actually job turnover is a good thing. Why? Because people will perform better, the most productive with the best fit. Okay? A will be very unhappy with firm Z. Okay? So he would not perform well up to his full ability. But if he goes to firm X, he will do much better and will be much more productive. So, you know, say, you know, so the moving from Z to X will make everything improve. Okay? He will be more productive. The firm will find more productive worker, and then, you know, his life will be happier, right? So, actually, if you think of this job match quality, basically we can say that turnovers should be efficient. So, overall, the economy will improve in terms of their efficiency with these type of turnovers. Okay? So, at the end, A will be matched with X, and B will be matched with Y. So everyone will go to the, you know, best fit. Okay. So workers with good matches should get higher wages because they are more productive, and they will stay in the firm for a long time because, you know, he or she is happiest with this firm. So he or she will stay in those firms. And those with bad matches generally will get poor, lower wage because it's less productive, and will try to move or will be laid off. So their tenure will be shorter. Okay, the person will move within, let's say, a year or something. Okay? So obviously, you know, young people are more likely to move than older people, because young people, you know, once you get the first job, you probably don't know about the job much. Okay, so usually later you find, after some time, you find out that this is not a good fit for you, and you decide to move. And the old person actually did that while they were young, so they are now settled in, you know, in the job that they like. Okay, so they wouldn't move much. Okay, so, you know, you think about it, and it is natural for young people to move more often than older people. Okay. Okay. Questions? It's very intuitive, right? It's very intuitive theory that okay. Now, this job match theory actually has very interesting implication on a few things. Okay. First thing is that, you know, according to this job match theory basically says that the quality of job match is fixed. Okay, it means that it does not improve over time. That's the, you know, basic assumption. Now you have a good fit with this company. And if it's a good fit with this company, that's a good fit forever. If it's a bad fit, it's a bad fit forever. It does not get better even if you stay with this firm for a long, long time. The only way is to get out of it. That's why, job turnover happen when you follow the job match quality theory. Okay? So job match quality theory basically, in a way, the basic assumption is the quality is fixed. It doesn't change. Okay? So in a way, that whether you stay with this firm for a long time or only for a short time, it just depends on the quality of job match. Okay? Now, but this is actually has a conflicting implication with the human capital investment theory. Specific training theory is actually, the idea is you accumulate the specific human capital, then if I use the language of job match theory, the quality of job match will be better and better. Okay? So you accumulate specific human capital. So you know more and more about this job. Then you will become more productive. Your wage will be higher. Okay? So, if you move to another company, actually your wage will be lower because this human capital is job specific. Okay? Well, the employer will find you to be more and more valuable as you accumulate more specific human capital. Okay? So specific human capital theory basically says that the probability of job turnover will decline if you stay with this company for a long time. Okay? So if you're forced to stay with this company for a long, long time, then you will like it at the end. If I use very, coarse language, okay, intuitive language. Okay? But job match theory is not like that. Okay? The job match quality is fixed. Okay? It does not change over time. Now, so it has very interesting implications. Okay, so first implication is about seniority and job turnover. What it means? Okay, specific training theory basically implies that job turnover will decline with job seniority for a given worker. So basically, that according to specific training, specific human capital theory, if job seniority increases, then with the increase of seniority, the probability of turnover declines. Okay, that's the specific human capital theory. So there is a direct, cause. There is a direct causality from the time on the job and the decline of job turnover. Now, let's think of an alternative theory with the job match theory. Okay. In this job match theory, the idea goes like this. Okay, the time does not change the quality of job match. Okay, then how come the seniority and job turnover related negatively? Okay, one idea is that because it's a fact that if you look at the data, those who stay with the firm for a long time have lower probability of turnover. Those who stay with the firm for a short time has higher probability of turnover. So we should try to explain it. And specific human capital theory explains that increasing tenure directly reduces the probability of turnover. Now, the job match theory cannot say that. Okay, the idea goes like this. Okay, we have person A and B, okay, and they have different characteristics. That's the starting point of job match theory. People are different, even though they look the same. Okay? Let's say A, we call him mover. B is, we call him stayer. Okay? So in this case, there is a characteristic that is related with the propensity to move. So there are people who are more likely to move and people who are less likely to move. Okay? So, no, it's like their characteristics are different. There are some people, actually, I think among your friends, probably you can find them. There are some people who likes new things, try new things, right? Those people are likely to be movers. They get bored quite easily. You do the same thing for a couple of years and you find it's very boring. Okay, I want to I want to have a new challenge. So they go to another place. So that's what movers do. Okay? For them, something like quality of job match is not that high in the first place, in almost any place. And stayer is the opposite. He likes the stability. Okay? So doesn't like to move much. Okay? So it means that A will move around. B will stay with the firm, pretty much the same, pretty much for a long, long time. So A will have a lot of movement, a lot of turnovers, okay, and short tenure. Okay, the seniority will be low because he moves around so much. Okay, B has less turnover because he's a stayer and longer tenure because he's a stayer. Now look at this. Okay, here we have a negative relationship between turnover and tenure. Movers have lots of turnovers and short tenure. Stayers have less turnover and longer tenure, okay, because they don't change jobs much. Their tenure will be longer. Okay? But in this case, actually the tenure itself does not change the probability of turnover. Okay? What it changes is actually what kind of people they are, whether they are movers or stayers. Okay? So if I kind of write down the relationship, probably more easier way. In terms of specific human capital, when you say specific human capital theory, basically tenure increases, then probability of turnover decreases. Okay? The direct cause and effect. Okay? If you use job match theory, turnover and tenure, or seniority, the same thing. They are positively related, okay, not the cause and effect. Why? Because the actual effect is whether they are stayer or mover. Okay? So this one talks about causation, cause and effect. This one talks about just the relationship. Okay? Just association. It's not the cause and effect. It's just the association. This is a direct causation. Okay? So one theory tells the causation story. The other theory tells the association story. This is a simple association. Okay? Questions? Okay. So in the sense that this job match theory is actually alternative. It offers alternative explanation to specific human capital theory. Also the job turnover and the age earnings profile. Okay, let's look at the job turnover's age earnings profile. Actually, when we look at the data, this is just about the data. When you look at the data, we look at the people who change jobs often. Okay, and then actually for young people, what happens is that young workers who quit their jobs often experience increases in their wages. So if we follow same individual's wage, their earnings, they quit their job and then they move to another job. Okay? Usually, earnings will increase. Okay? That is, probably more likely because this person quit the job because he or she found the better job. So move to a better job, so earnings will increase. But if the person is laid off, generally it is followed by decrease in earnings. Okay, that is the usual case. So Age earnings profile differ across the movers and stayers. Okay, what it means. Okay. So stayers, since they stay in the same company, okay, and they accumulate the human capital, for example, or because of their become more skilled, the stayers will have, increasing, very smooth age earnings profile. Okay. For the movers, it's more like jumpy. Okay. So it's there and they quit, and then there is a sudden increase of earnings. Laid off, then decline of earnings. And quit and increase again. Okay. So the stayers and movers have different shape of age earnings profile. Okay. So this job match theory can actually have a different view of age earnings profile. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about the seniority and wages. Okay. Okay. Now, this has been actually, this was a quite important topic some time ago. So this talks about how the seniority and wages are related, right? So people usually assume that wages increase if the employee holds the job for a long time, right? So they stay on the same job for longer and longer time, then their wages will go up. Actually, we have a theory that is specific human capital. Specific human capital says that if you hold the same job and you accumulate human capital, and there is a return from your earlier investment, so the wage will increase. This is different from general human capital, because if the human capital is only general, okay, the person's earnings does not increase with actually seniority. It will increase in any job, right? Because if it's a general human capital, you can move to another employer and you still get higher earnings. So if the general human capital does not tell you the relationship between the tenure on the same job and the wages. It can generally tell you probably the age and the earnings, but not the seniority and earnings. Seniority and earnings are linked through the specific human capital, because specific human capital matters only when you stay on the same job. Okay? So that's the basic idea of specific human capital. Okay, you get the link? Okay? So the seniority and earnings, or seniority and wages, and age and wages, they are two different things I'm talking about. Okay? So specific human capital, it says that with more seniority, the wages will increase because you accumulate more human capital specific to this job. So if you hold this job for a longer time, your wage will be higher. Okay? So the specific human capital theory basically says tenure increase, then it directly increases wage. Okay? That's the theory. Okay. So actually this has been let's say, the standard theory for a long, long time, since 1960s and now early 1970s. Actually, the human capital theory was established around late 1960s. Okay. But there has been a question about this, whether the tenure do increase wages or not. Okay. So the idea goes like this. Let's think of job match. Job match is basically, job match theory says that job match quality is fixed. So if you get high quality match, your wage will be higher. Okay, from the beginning to the end. It doesn't matter. It does not. It may increase, but it's not like increasing like specific human capital. If you have low quality match, your wage will be lower. Okay, whether you have this job for a long time, your wage will still be lower. So in the job match theory, basically says, in a way that this is a seniority and wage. So let's say it's a good match, it's a bad match. Okay? There is no increase. There is no increase of wages. Basically, wages are flat. What matters is whether it's a good match or a bad match. Okay? So if we according to this theory, if we follow the same person along their seniority, then we should see the pretty flat wage seniority or wage tenure profile. Okay. But in the data, what's true is actually that if we look at the person with low tenure, their wages are generally lower. If we look at the persons with longer tenure, their wages are generally higher. How can you explain this with this diagram? This diagram is basically should be flat. If that's the case, then we should see pretty much flat line. But actually, what we see is that person with low seniority, they have lower wage. Person with higher seniority, they have higher wage. Okay, so how can you explain it? Actually, the explanation is pretty simple. People are matched with jobs, but there is a random environment with matching, because obviously you never know whether it's a good match or a bad match unless you get there. Okay, so there are some lucky people who find very good match in the beginning. Okay, so these lucky people will have higher wage because it's a good match. Okay, and will have long tenure. Because it's a good match, this person will just stay with this firm for a long, long time. Okay? Now, there are some unlucky people. This person finds a job and finds it's a bad match. So the wage is lower. Okay? Bad match means wage is lower. And then this person doesn't like it, so this person will quit this job or be laid off. So the tenure will be short. Okay? So it means that those who unlucky and gets the job with lower wage, bad match, will have lower wage and short tenure. And those who are lucky, okay, they have longer tenure and higher wage. Okay? So in this case, the job match theory basically says that tenure and wage are positively associated. Okay? This is a cause and effect. This is just association. Okay? What determines the association? Luck. Okay? How lucky you are. You are lucky, then you have good match. Good match just means that higher wage and you like it, you will stay with this firm long time. If you're unlucky, bad match, your wage will be lower. Since you have a bad match, you will quit or be laid off. So the tenure will be short. So they have positive association, not the cause and effect. Okay? This is cause and effect theory. This is association explanation. So actually, this has been a quite interesting topic in labor economics in 1980s, actually. So whether having a longer tenure matters or not. Okay. I think this has been actually has drawn lots of interest because some countries, according to from country to country, there is a different practices, employment practices. For example, like in 1980s, there was a big deal about this Japan and US thing. Because 1980s, Japan was doing very well. Okay? US was doing not very well. Okay? So there has been lots of talk about, what's wrong with the US and those kind of things. And one of the things they find out is that Japanese companies, they usually, keep their employees until they retire. So it's like lifetime employment, you know. So in 1980, in 1980s, you know, in Japan, I think it's even in Korea probably. You know, once you get a job in one company, generally you stay with this same company until you retire, age 60, something like that. So lifelong employment. But U.S., you know, they found out that workers change jobs much more often than, let's say, Japanese workers. Okay, so they kind of, you know, think about what's the cost of those kind of things. Okay, and if you believe the specific human capital theory, actually, this kind of gives much more credit to Japanese companies. You know, Japanese company keep their workers for a long, long time, so these workers will accumulate their human capital, so they will become more productive. They will be, you know, they will enjoy higher wages, and you know, they will quit less and less and less. So that is, you know, this positive reinforcement. Okay? So I think that was kind of, idea of this positive view of lifelong employment with a specific human capital. But at the end, what happened? Japan crashed, right? And it seems now then U.S. has got into really good economic boom. Now it seems like, okay, U.S. is better. Okay. Oh, well, now let's look at this one. Oh, Japanese theory was, this theory probably wrong because, you know, we thought that tenure increases wages, but, you know, it's just a simple association, you know. So it's not the cause and effect. It's just we thought that it's cause and effect, but it was a mistake. Okay? So in a way that it gives, like, you know, with that kind of idea, you know, this idea kind of, you know, drew lots of interest from people. So there has been lots of debate about it. So some people thought that this was true. Some people thought this was true. I don't know what happened at the end. I think at the end they probably didn't care much. Okay. Yeah. No, their interests moved to somewhere else. So somehow it looked like a very interesting. But now it seems like this lifelong employment relationship has disappeared anyway, even in Japan. So we probably, you know, we don't talk about it much. So people lose interest. You know, it doesn't matter much anyway. Okay, questions? Okay. Oh, there is try this problem yourself. Okay. Now, the next topic I want to discuss is the labor market discrimination. Why did I say gender discrimination? Because I'm going to use gender as example. Okay. Okay. So this is going to talk about the discrimination issue in the labor market. So what we mean by taste discrimination or statistical discrimination, and we will discuss it later. Okay. So here to just introduce this topic, let's think about the gender issue in Korean labor market. Actually, you have seen, you know, the related statistics before, but for example, like if you look at the labor force participation rate, then obviously that the women's labor force participation rate is much lower than the men's. You have seen it. There is about more than 20 percentage point difference. For men, it's 70-something, 73 something. For women, it's about 50. So there is a more than 20% difference. So you can ask, why? What's behind this big difference? Okay. You can talk about some, you know, other things. Like, you know, you can think of the reasons, obviously, that that, for example, that women are more likely to stay home and raise kids and those kind of things. That then you can ask, why in the first place women's, not men, but women stay home and raise kids? Okay, is there some reason? Like some people say it's biological, but it may not be. So the discrimination, we will talk about it later. Now, another thing is that that's related issue is you have seen this LFPL of men and women, right? So men are looks like this. Women go up and down. This is like a childbearing age and increase again later. Okay, so there has been lots of drop from the labor market by women. Actually, if you look at the developed countries, this shape is very unique to Korea. If you look at the other countries, for example, this is Korea, blue one. I just pick France, but I can pick any place, Germany or whatever. It doesn't matter much actually. If you look at this diagram, what you see, there is no drop in the LFPL of women at the childbearing age. Okay? So the shapes is very different. What does it mean? It means that French women do not drop out of labor force only because they reach this certain age level. So it's not biological. If it's purely biological, the French women have pretty much the same biological makeup with, as Korean women, but why they act differently? Okay? There must be something wrong, something different, not biological reason. Could be something, some other than biological. If you look at the G7 country diagram, basically pretty much you can see that there's a little bit of a drop, okay? But it's not like this, okay? So what does it mean? It means that Korean women actually they behave very differently from women in more developed, let's say European, North American or countries. Okay, so the question should be that what's behind this difference? Okay, so it could be lots of things. Okay, so one thing we wanna, one thing we can think of is, let's say, discrimination. Let's say, the women are discriminated against in the labor market. They probably are, let's say, married women are discriminated against in the labor market. And they may be discouraged from working. So that's the, one possible explanation. That's why we're gonna, talk about discrimination today and next class. Employment rate by gender 2010. So as you can see that Korea, there is a 20 percentage point difference. But as you can see in other countries, the difference is much, much smaller. Except for Italy, there is a big difference. Japan is a big difference. Japan is an interesting country. But for example, if you look at the US, UK, Germany, there is only 10 percentage point difference. And one thing that you can see is that what is interesting is that in every country, men are more likely to be employed than women. That's true. Okay, there is no country it's equal or women labor force employment rate is higher. Okay, so it's universally the men are more likely to be employed, but the difference is much smaller in, let's say, Denmark, France, Germany, Spain, like 12 percentage point, UK, US, okay, then Korea. So there must be some explanation why this difference is so big. What's different from other countries? And another thing that we can see the female-male wage ratio. So female-male wage ratio is simple. It's just the female wage, average wage, divided by male average wage. So we average all female workers' wage, and we average all male workers' wage. We just divide them. That's the number. It's about 65. What does it mean? Okay. So if average man is paid 101, then average woman is paid 65 won. Okay? So it's a huge difference. If you compare to 1980, 35 years ago, it was even worse, 42.5. It's less than half. Now it has improved, but it's we are kind of stuck around here, like 63, 65. So average women are paid 35% less than average men. So what's behind it? What is it? And if you look at the female-male wage ratio internationally, in the manufacturing sector 2007, Korea is at the bottom, 58. Sweden, 90. Norway, 89. Denmark, 87, 86. What is interesting here also is that no country is 100. No country has perfectly equal average wage for men and women. Actually, in every country, average men are paid more than average woman. That's a fact. I mean, that's true. Okay? That's one thing that we should pay attention to later. But what is interesting about here is that Korea is at the bottom. Actually, it's worse than Hong Kong or Singapore. Okay? So what it shows is, in summary, what we see here is that the labor market situation or labor market performance of men and women in Korea it's very different. Okay, and the difference is much bigger in this country than in other developed country or even some developing Asian country as well. Okay, so what's behind it? Actually, you can, for example, about the wage, you can talk about a few things. For example, the human capital may be different. On average, right, the men are, let's say, have accumulated more human capital than women. Then if you follow the human capital investment theory, that men should be paid more than women because they have higher human capital. Okay, but that's the only thing. Okay, can it explain 35 percentage point difference? 35% difference. Okay. And actually, you can ask, then in the first place, why do their human capital level is so different? That's another question. So today and the next class, what we are going to look at is that as one explanation, it's not the only explanation, but as one explanation, we are going to look at the discrimination issue. Okay? Discrimination, it can be a pretty simple answer to all these things. Women are discriminated against in the labor market. So the employer don't like women. So they pay them less. They hire them less. Okay? So their employment rate is low. Their wage rate is low. Okay? The discrimination can be a powerful and simple answer to this question. Okay? And Korean women perform a lot worse than Korean men in another country. Probably Korean employers are very discriminatory. They discriminate against women, much more, severely than Swedish employers, for example. Okay? And every country discriminates against women, right? It's not 100. So every country discriminates, but this country is worse. Okay? So that's a possibility. So, but before we talk about discrimination, then we need to know what discrimination is and how it works, and how it works to make this difference in this wages and their employment and other things. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. So, in our class, we will talk about discrimination. We will talk about actually two different types of discrimination. First one, we call it taste discrimination. The other, we call it the statistical discrimination. Okay. So what the taste discrimination is, okay, we will see later. This is very simple, intuitive way of thinking about discrimination. Before we talk about it, He's Gary Becker. Now the late Professor Gary Becker. He lived a long life, 84 years. Okay, he passed away last year, around this time, actually, 3rd May, and he contributed so much to in general to economics, and he's one of the most important person when he formulated the theory of human capital and those kind of things. And one of his most important contributions to economics in general is the theory of discrimination. Okay? So what we are going to learn is actually the Gary Becker's theory. Actually, it was Gary Becker's PhD thesis. Okay? The theory of discrimination. And he's a brilliant economist. And if you read his paper, and he can use economics so well. So he can explain so many things using it. Anyway. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty sad that he was very active, until even in his 80s. Okay, now let's look at his theory. Okay. So employer discrimination. Okay, so here what we are thinking is a taste discrimination. As it says, discrimination happens because the individual have this discriminatory taste. Okay, when economists say taste, it usually means it's about the utility function. Okay, we call taste preference. Taste, preference. And taste and preference determine your utility function. That's how the economists use the term taste. Okay, or we use preference. Okay, so taste discrimination is the discrimination people think. Okay, an individual discriminates against women because the individual doesn't like women. That's the taste. For whatever reason. Some individual discriminate against, let's say, black people because they don't like them. Okay, simply because they don't like them. Okay, there is no specific reason. They make up reasons, but at the end, it's actually their own taste. So we just think about discrimination, in this case, embedded into this individual's utility function. It's in head. It's in the head, okay, or in the heart, or whatever, wherever the taste is. Okay. So first, we look at employer discrimination. What does it mean? It means that the case of employer having discriminatory taste against women. Okay. If we can change women to, let's say, minority, racial minority, or whatever, to any group that you can think of. Okay. Then basically we can apply the same theory. Okay? We just use gender as an example. Okay, now I think. Okay, to set up this theory, let's think of this. There are two types of workers in the labor market: the male and the female. Okay. I think in our textbook, actually, you look at white and black, but basically it's the same thing. Okay, just a different example. Male and female. Okay. Male and female workers, let's assume they are perfect substitutes. Okay. It means that one male worker produces exactly the same as one female worker. So they are pretty much the same. Okay. So from employers, if the employer cares only about profit, okay, the employer wouldn't care, okay, whether it's a male or female, because they're perfectly same. Okay, makes sense? And we assume the markets are perfectly competitive. So since they are perfect substitutes, we can say the production function looks like something like this, right? Q equals as the EM, so number of male workers, plus EF, number of female workers. So it simply means that if you use one male and 0 female, or use 1 female or 0 male, should be the same. Okay? So value of marginal product of male and female workers is equal to VMP. Their value of marginal product of labor should be exactly the same. So let's think of market wage for females and males. WF, WM. Female wage, male wage. Now, think of the case where the WF is lower than WM. Okay? So for whatever reason, female wage is lower than male wage. If you're a profit maximizing firm, what should you do? Would you hire men? No, right? Why not? Because their productivity, VMP, is exactly the same, but it's more expensive, right? So no reason to hire men, right? If they're perfectly identical, you should use whichever cheaper. Okay, that's how you maximize profit. So if WF is lower than WM, non-discriminatory employers will hire only, right, female workers up to what point? To the point where WF equals BMPE, right? It's a simple profit maximizing condition. So it should look like this, okay? Assuming that WF is lower than WM, if the WF is given at this level, then we have VMPE curve for women, and EF star should be the profit maximizing level of employment. Okay? Got it? It's simple. So this shows the case where that non-discriminatory employer hires only women because WF is lower than WM, and then the hires EF star women because it's profit maximizing level. Okay? So this employer, if WM is lower than WF, then this employer will switch to men, right? Okay, because the gender doesn't matter. Now, let's introduce a discriminatory employer. How would you express it's likely to be him, so we call him, okay? Discriminatory employer, his discriminatory taste. Okay, one way of doing it is actually the way of doing it by Becker is actually it's brilliant, simple and brilliant. Okay, this discriminatory employer who is prejudiced against female workers, and he gets this utility from hiring female workers. He just doesn't like them. So if he hires women, and he's just he becomes unhappy. Okay, get it? That's why it's called taste discrimination. It's in the taste. So when he makes hiring decisions, he basically factors into his disutility from hiring women. How? He will act as if the female wage is not WF, but is instead equals to WF times 1 plus D. And we call D is discrimination coefficient. This size it's a degree of discriminatory taste. If the discriminatory taste is very strong, D will be a large number. If this discriminatory taste is relatively weak, and D gonna be a smaller number. If it's non-discriminatory, D should be 0. Right? So he acts as if WF is WF. Okay? If discriminatory taste is, let's say, 0.1, if WF is, let's say, $10, and he pays $10 to women if he hires women, but he behaves as if he's paying $11. Okay? He actually pays only $10. That's out of his own pocket. He does not pay $11. He just thinks that there is a $1 extra. Okay? So there is a difference, right, between the actual monetary pay to the women and then the psychological, whatever, psychological payment, psychological amount of the payment. Okay, get it? So this is a very simple idea, but it's very effective. So how would you react? Okay, we assumed WF is lower than WM. Okay, so now non-discriminatory employer will look at only the monetary value of WF, WM, but now the discriminatory employer will look at WF times 1 plus D and WM. Okay? So, for example, as I said, let's say, WF is, let's say, it's $10. WM, let's say, is $12, right? So if D is, let's say, 0.1, then he will think that, he's paying $11 to women. Okay? Now, what is he going to do? If he thinks paying is $11, he will hire only female or male? Only women, right? He has discriminatory taste, but his discriminatory taste is not very strong enough to pay $2 extra. Okay? So, as you can see, obviously, if D is, let's say, 0.2, the same. Okay? But if D is, let's say, 0.3, then he will act like he's paying $13 to women. So he will hire only men. Okay? That's what it is. So there is a very interesting observation, which is if you have non-discriminatory taste, or if you have weak, D is small, then you hire only women. So the firms that hire only women is actually a mix of non-discriminatory employer and discriminatory employer. Okay? And if you hire only men, you are clearly discriminatory employer, right? Because there is no reason to hire men except for discriminatory taste. Okay? So that's what it says. Okay? So we call female firm. So female firms are the firms that hire only women. It's some are non-discriminatory, some have small d, and male firms hire only men, and their d is relatively large. Okay. Now, let's think of this male firm. Okay, what happens if the male firm hires only men? Okay, he will pay WM, obviously. Okay, so with VMPE, which is same for men and women, because male wage is high, and profit maximizing with WM should be EM star, right? So with WM, this is the best he can do. But he is not actually maximizing the profit. Why? Simple. If he wants to maximize profit, he should hire only women, paying WF, and hire EF star. So what does it mean? It means that basically this employer is sacrificing his profit to satisfy his taste. Right? He is paying too much. Right? He should pay only $10. Because man does the same thing as women, so if he's in the right mind, he should pay 10, but he's now paying 12. And since he's paying too much, he is hiring too little. He's way below the profit maximizing level. Okay? So it means it's a male firms whose employees dislike female workers pay excessively high price for its workers and hires relatively few workers. How about the female firm? Okay, female firm, if you're non-discriminatory, you will hire EF star. Okay? If your discriminatory taste is D0, discriminatory coefficient D0, you will hire EF0. Okay, and EF1. Okay, you see that. Okay, because in this case, since these employers have discriminatory taste, they hire fewer women than non-discriminatory firm. Okay, so if this firm hires 100 females, it's hire only 90 or only 80. Okay, what's the difference between these firms? Okay, in terms of the wages they pay, it's same, right? This is a psychological cost. Actual payment is still WF. So all three firms pay $10 to their workers. So that's fine about this part. But these firms hire too few, right? This is not profit maximizing level. Profit maximizing level should be 100 workers. But it's hiring 90, hiring 80, which means it's producing too fewer than profit maximizing level of quantity. So also these firms, two firms, are sacrificing profit. Okay? So at the end, what you can say, discrimination does not pay, because discrimination, if you try to satisfy discriminatory taste, you have to sacrifice your profit. Okay? Which means if at the end, profits of discriminatory firms are lower than profits of non-discriminatory firms. Okay? So that's a logical conclusion of this. So if all the firms have the same technology, then competition in the market at the end will make the discriminatory firms disappear because they make too little money. Okay? So actually, if it's a competitive firm, they should be making a loss. So at the end, competition will wither the discriminatory practice. So I think I should stop here. So Becker's idea here is that actually the competition is the way to discourage discriminatory practice by employers. Okay, so you can have laws and everything. Okay, but also quite important is the the competition in the market, because competition in the market at the end will make only the non-discriminatory firms to profitable, and then they will win at the end. I think we should stop here.